Hey folks, Pops here from Bourbon and Banter, and today we're going to take a closer look at StilL 630's Experimental Collection release number 4. Today's release is all about, wait a minute, I'm not going to tell you, see if you can figure it out. You think you know? Alright then, let's take a closer look. Alright, so if you guessed apple brandy, you'd be 100% correct. Experimental release number 4 is indeed an apple brandy, and this is coming from single ingredient apple juice, actually from a local orchard just over the river in Illinois called Schweet's Orchard. And it's fresh squeezed apple juice, no preservatives, no additives, and it's primarily made from golden delicious apples. So the juice is brought over to StilL 630, where they then double distill it. They're barreling it at about 110 proof. And then they're aging it in their 15-gallon barrels with a char number 3 for about 19 months or so. And then when they pour it out, it's going into the bottle at 100 proof, just like all the other releases, to maintain that consistency. And once again, this is unfiltered. All right, so you're getting a pretty interesting product here. And for those of you who aren't familiar with brandy, we don't see it a lot in the U.S. Obviously, you've got things like cognac, things of that nature that are out there, but from an American perspective, really the only one other than Laird's Applejack and the brandy products they're putting out is Copper and Kings, which started up down in Louisville. And we actually, the team for Bourbon and Banter was down there last week, got to stop in there and try their American brandy, which is some very solid product. So I thought it'd be interesting to do this review and then make some comments of how it compares to this product if you've had an opportunity to try this. Diving into X4, the apple brandy from StilL 630, there is on the nose, first off, immediately jumps into you. It's just a wonderful, rich, and bright apple aroma. There's no mistaking that this is an apple brandy. You're not going to confuse it with a fruit-forward bourbon in any way. In that, along with that apple, you're getting a little bit of the oak influence, but what's kind of nice is, unlike some of the other StilL 630 releases, the oak's not too overpowering. And then meddled in that is some nice solid caramel and some spice, which is coming out of that oak profile as well. It's a very, very delightful nose. And one that seemingly just gets better and better the longer I let it sit out in the glass. On the tip of your tongue, you're going to get that bright green apple flavor. Almost picking up a little bit of pear essence as well. As it travels across your tongue, you start pulling up some of those warmer, spicy notes. And a little bit more of that oak as it goes into the finish. Now, what's interesting about the finish on this is it's spicy. It's got a little bit of the tannic from the wood, but the apple notes are remaining, and actually as it starts to fade, you're left with more apple with a little bit of that oak, and the spice fades away. A very, very pleasant, unbalanced finish. Truth be told, I was at the distillery the day that this was released, and I tried it, and you have to imagine we're in a distillery room, about 30, 40 other individuals trying this. And at that time, I thought it was a little too tannic, a little too bitter. But now that I've been able to bring it back to my house, try it a few times, let it air out a little bit, it's really rounded out quite nicely. You know, I think the only thing I would like to see improvement is, I think the wood, the oak, is a little too overpowering on the finish in aggregate. I would like a little bit more of the spice and the apple to be prevalent, because the tannic's building up, the tannin and oak flavor is building up a little bit as I go along. But not unpleasant, just, you know, I don't like a lot of wood notes just to be out in front in my whiskey and brandies and things of that nature. But I think this is one of my favorites so far. Obviously, it's something different. And it's really kind of exciting to see David and his team putting out something like a brandy. I think it's something there'll be more and more of in the market as distillers start to look for opportunities to do things that are different and innovate. You know, in comparing this to the stuff from our friends down at Copper and Kings, you know, there's a lot of technical differences in what StilL 630 is doing and what Copper and Kings is doing, so I can't make a direct comparison. But what I can tell you is that the StilL 630 is so much more fruit forward. On the Copper and Kings, there's, you know, less fruit. It's still there, but it's toned down with more of traditional bourbon notes, vanilla, caramel. There's a little bit of a funky note in there that I can't quite off the top of my head pinpoint. So it's really, really different. I mean, a lot of the stuff with Copper and Kings, people say you might confuse it with a fruit-forward bourbon. With the StilL 630, there's no mistaking that this is not a bourbon, and I personally think that's a good thing. I think this is great. Copper and Kings is great from a transitional perspective of getting bourbon drinkers into the brandy space. Just a completely different flavor profile. Pardon my slurring. Good stuff. The StilL 630 is in the comparison once again, which isn't really apples to grapes. Sorry for the joke, but yeah, I enjoy the StilL 630 better. I think it's more more of a change of pace from bourbon, and I'd be really curious to see how some aging of this in a larger barrel with a little less oak influence would be, how that would mature out. So that all being said, I'd love to see this brandy from the X4 become one of the products that StilL 630 continues to develop and innovate on and push out for a longer time, because that's the whole purpose of the experimental collection, is to find recipes and releases that people enjoy, and how can they innovate and iterate on those as they go forward. So Dave, you and your team have done a great job. I think this is a fantastic addition to the collection. Look forward to what you do with it next. And for those of you who are intrigued by what we're doing here with our reviews for StilL 630 and their experimental collection, we invite you to subscribe to this playlist where we go through all the different reviews. Visit StilL 630's website, as well as bourbonbanter.com. And once again, if you get in the St. Louis area, remember the first Friday of the month is when they release a new release, okay, from their collection. And you can come down to the distillery at 6:30 at night and get your hands on a bottle and play along with us at home, if you will. And I believe this coming up release is going to be 100% corn whiskey. And that'll be kind of interesting to see how they take that. And then I'm sure the next several releases along that will show how they take that corn whiskey and evolve it, much like they did with X1, which was their single malt. And then for X2 and X3, they did some variations on a theme. So that being the case, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're curious enough to want to reach out to StilL 630, see how you can get a bottle of this. And until next time, my friends, please drink curious.